When we think of the Wild West, the image is almost automatic. High noon duels, stone-faced gunslingers straight out of a Clint Eastwood movie, and that brutal kill or be killed law. It's the backbone of any proper cowboy flick. But what if the most wanted gunman in that dusty world was actually a goofy pacifist who cries over donuts and refuses to take lives? We're talking about Trigun, a 90s gem that truly left its mark. At first glance, it sells you the story of the legendary Vash the Stampede, an outlaw with an outrageous $60 billion double-dollar bounty on his head, said to be capable of wiping entire cities off the map. But Trigun is sneaky. What starts out looking like a western quickly morphs into a deep sci-fi tale about trauma, the weight of immortality, and the painful cost of trying to keep the peace in a world built on violence. So get ready, because the story of this humanoid typhoon is about so much more than shootouts. Today, we're diving into the full story to see why this anime remains an absolute masterpiece. We kick things off in the aftermath of an incident known as the Humanoid Typhoon, which has left the city of Dankin in ruins. Because of this, a gang led by a giant cyborg is hunting down Vash the Stampede. The reason? A $60 billion double-dollar bounty on his head. That's a whole lot of cash. At the same time, we meet Meryl and Millie, two employees from an insurance agency. Their mission is to basically act as Vash's babysitters, investigating the rumors about him and preventing him from causing any more financial damage to their company. Imagine trying to put a leash on a walking natural disaster. The real trouble begins when a cyborg leader and another bounty hunter, Ruth, run into each other and mistake one another for Vash. A gunfight worthy of a classic western breaks out, and caught in the crossfire are Vash, Meryl, and Millie. They manage to escape unharmed, but the town of Felnarl is turned into Swiss cheese. The craziest part, no one got hurt. After all the chaos, we see Meryl in another town, filling out insurance paperwork. The look on her face says she's already regretting taking this job. Meryl and Millie stop at a mansion in the middle of nowhere to ask for water, and who answers the door? Vash, the clumsy goofball from the last episode. The two are stunned. The mansion's owner, Cliff, explains that he hired a bodyguard because someone with a red coat and blonde hair, a dead ringer for Vash, has been trying to kill him. He says he asked for Vash the Stampede as a gag, just to scare people off, and never expected the real deal to show up. Meryl, suspicious, warns him that this guy is an imposter, and Cliff agrees, saying he's just using the name for intimidation. Vash, being his usual pervy self, tries to spy on the mansion's other guest, Marianne, while she's bathing, only to discover she's vanished. A short while later, during an awkward dinner, Vash notices that Marianne is injured. The situation turns into a mystery film. Marianne and Cliff disappear, and the girls find bloody bandages. Meryl, playing detective, thinks Marianne is the villain, but Vash refuses to believe it. In a panic, he bumps into a bookshelf and, in classic Scooby-Doo fashion, opens a secret passage. Down below, the truth comes to light. Marianne is an agent investigating Cliff, who has been stealing and hoarding the entire region's water supply. Cliff appears, attacks Marianne, and just as he's about to deliver the final shot, Vash comes screaming down a water slide. He starts dodging Cliff's bullets with absurd ease, reading his every move. The fight ends with Vash flicking him on the nose and taking his gun. Cliff reveals more hidden weapons, but Vash dodges again, causing the shots to hit the water tanks and a block of ice, which he then uses to disarm the villain. The entire dam ends up bursting, flooding the town. In the end, Marianne explains this is a good thing, as it will bring prosperity back. She becomes totally smitten with Vash, much to Meryl's annoyance, who thinks it was all just dumb luck. When Marianne asks if he's the real Vash, he plays dumb and makes a run for it to avoid being captured by his new admirer. Our red-coated hero arrives in a town looking for Frank Marlin, a legendary gunsmith. The problem is, Marlin has become a hopeless drunk ever since his family was killed by bandits using one of the guns he himself created. Vash, being a good guy, agrees to have a drink with him and listens to his tragic story. The next morning, Vash leaves his gun with Marlin for repairs and heads into town. That's when he runs into a bootleg Vash, who's robbing an armored truck with his gang. To make matters worse, Meryl and Millie have been taken hostage and forced to help. As it turns out, the town doesn't have a sheriff for one simple reason. Everyone there owns a Frank Marlin special firearm. Vash, though unarmed, plays the hero and bluffs, pretending he has a gun in his coat. Seeing his courage, the woman from the bar draws her weapon, and soon after, the entire town follows suit, pointing their guns at the bandits. To top it all off, Marlin himself appears, using his finger as a gun, and helps run the thieves out of town. The man has gotten his spark back. In the end, Marlin repairs Vash's gun, and he sets off on his next adventure with the insurance girls hot on his heels, as always. Millie and Meryl are stuck in a small town during a sandstorm, waiting for the dust to settle in a bar. But their quiet day turns into a heist movie when a gang storms the place and takes everyone hostage, including the two of them and a girl who loves cards. Meanwhile, Vash gets dropped off in the middle of nowhere and has to cross a giant cemetery to reach the town. He makes a grand entrance with headphones on, chewing gum and dancing, completely oblivious that he's crashing a hostage situation. The sheriff and the mayor are yelling at him.
Even realize he's being shot at. Looks like he's going inside. Stop it! Get out of there!
But Vash is in his own world and ends up becoming another victim. Once inside, he finally gets what's going on. The card-loving girl is the mayor's daughter, and the gang is there for revenge. The mayor and sheriff killed their families years ago. It's the classic plot twist where the bad guys aren't so bad after all. To make things worse, the corrupt sheriff hires some mercenaries to rescue the girl, even if it means eliminating the other hostages in the process. But Vash, Millie, and Meryl team up and take care of the goons. Vash then organizes an old-school duel between the gang leader and the mayor to settle things honorably. In the midst of the chaos, the sheriff tries to kill everyone to seize power, but his plan backfires, and he's stripped of his position. In the end, Vash delivers his iconic line, showing that despite the chaos, he still believes that this world is made of love and peace. Vash barely sits down for breakfast before a mob of bounty hunters shows up, demanding the $60 billion double dollars on his head. He gets rid of them easily, but word spreads. Now the entire town knows who he is and decides they also want the money to fix their town's plant, which is like their industrial heart. When Millie and Meryl arrive, they find an apocalyptic scene. Everyone, from old ladies to children, is hunting Vash. To top it off, the sheriff has hired the Nebraska family, a group of professional captors, to join the fray. Ironically, it's the women of the town who managed to capture Vash, but the celebration is short-lived as the Nebraska family shows up to crash the party. At this moment, Vash becomes the hero no one expected. He protects his captors and takes on the Nebraskas. For the first time, he uses his gun and, with just 6 bullets, defeats the bounty hunting duo. As a bonus, he donates the reward for the Nebraska's capture to the town. It's at this moment that it finally clicks for Meryl. She realizes that this weird, spiky-haired guy is, in fact, the legendary Vash the Stampede. The legend is real. He's just a lot goofier than she ever imagined. The town throws a huge celebration for Vash and his friends. With the money from the last episode, they finally hire engineers to repair the plant. The team arrives in a massive sand vehicle, and the chief engineer is a stunning woman named Elizabeth. She hires Vash as her bodyguard, but treats him more like a pet dog, and he, of course, accepts immediately. The problem is, someone seems to be after her, and Vash has to go into hero mode to fight a sinister masked man. The next day, Elizabeth takes Vash inside the plant, and then comes the first plot twist. She was the one who hired the masked man. Vash defeats him again, but the biggest surprise is yet to come. Elizabeth's plan is to destroy the plant to kill Vash along with it. He manages to stop the explosion in the nick of time, and discovers the reason for her hatred. Elizabeth was a survivor of the City of July, which was destroyed by Vash. The people who survived the initial blast eventually died of starvation, including her parents. She's seeking revenge, but the revelation leaves a question hanging in the air. The destruction happened almost 30 years ago. How is it that Vash hasn't aged a single day? The mystery of who he really is only deepens. After saving the city yet again, Vash gets a party thrown in his honor, but as usual, he dips out the next day and hops on a sand steamer to leave town, leaving Meryl and Millie behind. On the train, a man in a suit tries to hire Vash as a bodyguard to protect the locomotive from the Bad Lads gang. Vash refuses, claiming he's just an ordinary passenger. Shortly after, while trying to use the restroom, he gets whacked on the head with a ventilation grate and meets Kite, a young stowaway who tells him a sad, fake story about his life. And Vash, of course, believes every word. Later, he runs into Meryl and Millie working at the candy stand to pay for their tickets. And here comes the plot twist. Vash actually did accept the bodyguard job in exchange for a first-class cabin. In the VIP room, Kite devours all the food while Vash passes out, a victim of a sleeping drug in his drink. While he's asleep, he dreams of a woman named Rem. Meanwhile, the Bad Lads gang, led by a guy with the most absurd name of all time, Brilliant Dynamite's Neon, or BDN, prepares to board the train, following a signal from Kite. Once aboard, BDN orders Kite to round up all the passengers. The gang is disappointed by the measly loot the passengers have. BDN's plan is to crash the train into a ravine to break open a safe they found. Kite freaks out, revealing the train belonged to his father. BDN responds by shoving a gun in the boy's mouth, but that's when Vash smashes through a window and makes his entrance. Vash grabs Kite and escapes through the broken window.
Boss Simpson was in the passenger cabin!
Impressing BDN, who orders his men to capture him. Meanwhile, Meryl and Millie knock out 2 bandits, and BDN forces the captain to drive the train, threatening to kill a hostage. With the sand steamer speeding out of control, Brilliant Dynamite's Neon's henchmen hunt for Vash and Kite. The two hide in a ventilation duct, where Vash learns about the insane plan to crash the train into a chasm. He complains about his constant bad luck, while Kite remembers his father, who was more obsessed with trains than his own family. To prove his point, the boy shows Vash a detailed blueprint of the train. Impressing him, with a new plan in mind, Vash ambushes 3 bandits, but after taking them down, he stops to tend to their wounds. Kite is furious, unable to understand why Vash didn't kill them. It's then that he notices Vash himself is also injured. Vash explains his philosophy: if he takes a life, someone will be sad about it. Guided by Kite through a communicator, Vash continues on his way until he's cornered by BDN and his gang. They unleash a hail of bullets, but Vash dodges every single one, in full-on Neo from the Matrix style.
Are you no longer afraid of dying?
The problem is, other bandits find and capture Kite. Just as BDN is about to finish Vash off, Meryl and Millie show up and hold the gang at gunpoint. Meryl drops the bombshell. This guy is Vash the Stampede, the humanoid typhoon. BDN is actually thrilled by the news, right as the train scrapes against the side of the canyon. In the ensuing chaos, only Vash and BDN are left standing, their guns aimed at each other. They agree to a duel outside on the train. Vash wins, but the train is still out of control. This is Kite's chance for redemption. He takes responsibility and, with the unlikely help of BDN himself, manages to stop the locomotive at the last second. Kite wakes up in the infirmary, where Vash tells him the villain helped save everyone. Outside, the boy sings a song that makes Vash remember Rem. Vash, Meryl, and Millie are traveling by bus when Vash, with his eagle eyes, spots an unconscious man in the middle of the desert. The man is wearing a suit and lying next to a giant cloth-wrapped cross.
What is it this time?
That!
They rescue him and give him water. The man introduces himself as Wolfwood, a priest whose motorcycle broke down. Millie, never one to mince words, reveals that his savior is Vash the Stampede. Wolfwood doesn't seem fazed by the reputation and quickly befriends Vash. Meanwhile, a mechanical antenna sprouts from the sand and begins monitoring the bus. Wolfwood explains that his church is also an orphanage and that he's traveling to raise some money. He shows his good side by giving food to some hungry children, which brings a genuine smile to Vash's face. Suddenly, a passenger shows up injured. Vash says it was not the work of a mortal, and, as if summoned, a giant robot emerges from the sand and attacks. Vash and Millie destroy it, but dozens more appear. They flee on the bus, and a mother realizes her daughter is missing. Without a second thought, Vash and Wolfwood leap from the moving bus to rescue her. Following the tracks, they find the robots. Wolfwood tries to attack one with a knife, which shatters instantly. The robot informs him that he has no registered ID and will be forcibly removed. Vash saves him from the lasers, and Wolfwood finally understands that he is the real humanoid typhoon. Chasing the robot that abducted the girl, the two fall into quicksand and end up in an underground spaceship, the robot's base. Inside, Vash hands his gun to Wolfwood, who claims he's never fired a gun in his life, right before displaying perfect aim. Vash smiles, confirming his suspicion. He's no ordinary priest. When the bullets run out, Vash reveals his machine gun arm and destroys the remaining robots. He shuts down the entire ship, and when Wolfwood asks what happened, Vash replies, "Must have been God." Moments later, Meryl and Millie blast through the ceiling to rescue them. Here we get a glimpse into Vash the Stampede's daily routine, which begins with a monologue about being a hunter of peace in search of love, followed by 3 seconds of meditation and some quick draw practice. After being snubbed by a girl on the street,
So, anyway, what would you say to having lunch with me? Not a chance.
He's found by Meryl, who complains that he does nothing but eat and play with kids instead of working. Vash meets a local boy named Neil, who takes him to his mother's restaurant and who's working there as a waiter, Wolfwood. He explains that Neil's mother, Claire, is drowning in debt left by her runaway husband, and some thugs keep shaking her down. Wolfwood, having defended her once, decided to help. His new plan is to convince Vash to enter a quick draw tournament to win the prize money and save the family. Vash hesitates, but eventually gives in when he thinks about the hot mom and their tough situation. Meryl thinks the idea is a disaster, picturing a hail of bullets in town due to the bounty on Vash's head, but he just replies with a casual, "It'll be fine." Meanwhile, the tournament director sees Vash's name on the list, assumes it's a fake, and speaks with a mysterious figure in the shadows. Later, Wolfwood and Vash talk about the orphanage the priest runs, which is why he doesn't want Neil to end up alone. Meryl and Millie, who were eavesdropping, understand the situation and support the decision. The four of them drink together, and Millie gets so wasted she even takes her clothes off. On the day of the competition, Vash shows up hungover but still hits every target. He complains that he's drawing too much attention. To make things worse, Wolfwood has also been entered to increase their chances. And then comes the surprise. The next round isn't shooting bottles, but live ammo duels. Vash starts using pebbles to deflect his opponent's bullets, preventing anyone from dying. He and Wolfwood advance to the finals without killing anyone. In the final, Wolfwood tries to forfeit, but the director reveals he's holding Claire and Neil hostage. He offers 30 billion if Wolfwood eliminates Vash. In the duel, they fake killing each other using ketchup packets to simulate blood. When the director's henchmen get close, the two get up and take everyone down. For the grand finale, Wolfwood reveals his cross is a massive arsenal of pistols and defeats the remaining enemies, screaming that he won't let another child suffer. The cornered director pays out the prize money. The episode closes with Vash and Wolfwood playing with the kids, now true friends. A caravan is stranded in the desert. In a bar, Wolfwood is losing a chess match until Millie, looking for pudding, distracts his opponent and makes a winning move for him. As thanks, Wolfwood buys her bags of pudding. Suddenly, a dancer bumps into them, fleeing from some men. When one of them steps on Millie's pudding, she gets pissed and uses her giant stun gun to knock out the aggressors. The dancer, Moore, is still being chased, so Millie comes up with a plan. She hides the girl under her coat, pretending to be pregnant. Far away, Vash is hired by the mayor of Fondrique to find his adopted son, Julius, for 20 million. Millie and Wolfwood drop Moore off in a safe place, but are attacked by a man who turns out to be Julius himself. We learn he is the city's key because of a mark on his arm, and Moore is a slave. The mayor profits from the slave trade, and Julius wants to run away with Moore to end it. Wolfwood scolds Julius, saying his escape will destroy the city. To prove his point, he puts a gun to his own head and says he'll shoot if they leave. Julius is unfazed and walks away. Wolfwood pulls the trigger, but the gun was unloaded. Millie, loyal to her creed of helping those in need, follows the couple. Millie, Julius, and Moore are surrounded by henchmen in the desert. Wolfwood appears and defeats a few, but they are soon surrounded again. And who shows up to make things worse? Vash. He shoots and seemingly takes down Julius and Moore. The terrified henchmen flee, and a devastated Millie screams at Vash, but it was all a trick. Wolfwood reveals Vash used rubber bullets. Meryl delivers a message from the mayor saying he regrets his actions and that Julius and Moore are free. As the couple leaves, Vash and Wolfwood talk. Wolfwood reflects that he always thinks in terms of sacrifice, but never imagined that Vash's way would be the best solution. We meet Monev the Gale, a man training in a room packed with weapons. Legato Bluesummers appears and gives him the mission he's been waiting for, to assassinate Vash the Stampede. Cut to a peaceful day. Vash, Meryl, and Millie are relaxing, and Vash is even playing basketball with some kids. The peace is shattered when Legato appears. He sits on a bench and sends a telepathic warning to Vash. His death is scheduled for today. To prove he's not kidding, Legato lures one of the children over, pets his head, and then suddenly squeezes it, sending Vash into a panic. But it was just a scare. Legato laughs and leaves, leaving a paper bag on the bench as a parting gift. Seconds later, the local shoemaker's wife runs out screaming that her husband has been murdered. That night, Vash is framed and arrested for the murder. In his cell, he has a fit of rage, revealing a demonic face that terrifies Meryl and Millie. The conversation is cut short by Monev, who arrives with his minigun gauntlets blazing. He smashes into the cell, but Millie saves Vash, who grabs his gun and flees. Vash runs through the city, warning people to get away, but Monav, tired of the chase, starts firing into houses, killing several civilians. This is the final straw for Vash. He drops his calm demeanor, his eyes turn a demonic blue, and he fires 3 shots into Monav's helmet. Vash's transformation is so intense that Monav, the giant assassin, backs away in fear. Vash hides in a bank vault. When Monav fires at the building, Vash detonates an explosive that launches the vault outside, using it as a projectile and a makeshift surfboard. Mid-air, he shoots the last 2 pins on Monav's weapon, but it's not enough. The weapon transforms into a bazooka. Vash then reveals his ace in the hole. His left arm is a metal prosthetic that turns into a machine gun. He shoots the rocket, blowing it up in mid-air. Defeated, Monav shows no remorse. Vash loses control, kicks him to the ground, and points his gun arm at Monav's eye. He is about to kill him, but the memory of Rem stops him. Vash realizes that if he pulls the trigger, he'll lose that memory forever. As dawn breaks, he collapses in tears, shattered that he almost broke his code of never killing. Picking up where we left off, Vash is face to face with Monav, demanding to know who his boss is. But Monav, the poor guy, reveals he was duped. The man he thought was the big boss was just another pawn. Vash turns to leave, and Monav is like, "Are you crazy turning your back on me? I could kill you." But Vash is no fool, and replies that he never took his finger off the trigger. A true psychological Western standoff. With the town in ruins, Meryl sits down to write her report, which is really just a big previously on Trigun. She recalls how 4 months ago, she and Millie were assigned to track the humanoid typhoon, who was responsible for G-level damages. Basically, an insurance company's worst nightmare. The recap shows them being tricked, running into bounty hunters, and realizing that Vash's reputation didn't match reality. He was more of a clown than a feared gunslinger. Meryl admits that Vash's love and peace approach to everything drove her crazy, but also impressed her, since he hardly ever used his gun. That is, until the day he had to draw his revolver to save everyone from the Nebraska family, the same people who previously wanted his head. That's when it finally clicked for Meryl. This guy really was Vash the Stampede. Back in the present, she gets annoyed just hearing his voice singing love and peace. Later, they walk in on a half-naked Vash, and we get the reveal. His body is a roadmap of scars, and he has a prosthetic arm. Meryl asks how he can stand living with everyone judging him, and Vash drops a cool one-liner. He can't back down until he's buried his past. The next day, the trio is back on the road. Millie has decided to become a writer and spent all night sending letters to her family, which resulted in her oversleeping. Meryl, of course, gives her an earful in the morning, but Millie doesn't care, since the letters usually get her presents in return. Meanwhile, outside, there's a commotion. And who's in the middle of it? Vash, obviously. He's trying to break up a fight between an elderly couple and a young armed man, whom the old man calls a fat-lipped golem. Before Vash can do anything, Meryl and Millie arrive in "let us handle this" mode and accidentally drop a building on the guy, a necessary sacrifice they claim. As a result, the two are hired as bodyguards by the old couple, who own a piece of land that's a lush green oasis in the middle of the desert. Turns out, a villain named Morgan wants the land at any cost. To make things worse, the fat-lipped golem is actually Badwick, the couple's son. The night descends into utter chaos. The Nebraska family shows up for a fight. Bounty hunters arrive guns blazing, and the family drama unfolds. Morgan threatens to kill everyone, but Millie and Meryl stand in front of them, playing the heroines. In the middle of the mess, Badwick grabs the deed and escapes on a motorcycle. One of the Nebraskas throws her small son, yes, you read that right, at Badwick, but the projectile is intercepted mid-air. Who saved the day? Vash, who appears out of nowhere just to say, thanks for the help on the sand steamer. The Nebraska family has an existential crisis because their invincible reputation is ruined, and the other goons abandon Morgan. In the end, Badwick gets to the city hall and discovers the deed was already in his name the whole time. And to top it all off, the next day, the girls miss the bus because Meryl also decided to write letters to her family. Sometime later, we see Vash exhausted under the scorching sun, carrying Meryl and Millie on his back because they wrecked the car. Meanwhile, in a bar in Geniora Rock, we meet Legatol, a man who does not like to be disturbed while eating. A local gang member messes with him, and Legatol, without even getting up, uses his psychic powers to wipe out the entire gang.
Your turn! That's it! But what?
Pro tip, don't interrupt a supervillain's lunch. He even reflects that maybe Vash is making him more impulsive. When our trio finally reaches the town, Vash finds the pile of bodies in the bar and panics. Outside, Legato introduces his new friends, the Gung Ho Guns, who take care of the rest of the gang. He then orders a woman named Dominique the Cyclone to deal with Vash. Our hero, desperate for answers, runs to a windmill and finds more bodies and Dominique herself. The fight begins, and the woman appears to be teleporting, leaving Vash completely bewildered. But Vash is smart. He focuses on the pain in his own finger to avoid falling for her mental trick and manages to shoot Dominique's eye patch, revealing the secret to her power. When she tries to use it again, he makes her give up. That's when Meryl and Millie arrive and, of course, scold Vash for hurting a defenseless woman. Dominique uses the distraction to escape, promising to return. Vash, ever the flirt, yells after her to wear a dress next time. Night falls, and Vash sees Legatol in the distance. Realizing the danger has escalated, he makes a difficult decision. He tells Meryl and Millie to stop following him because he doesn't want them to die on his account. Things just got serious. While one of Legatol's henchmen, Mid-Valley, parties with some women, Legatol calmly enjoys a sundae. Just then, Mine rushes in, eager for his turn to fight Vash. Legatol, with the cool demeanor of a movie villain, gives him the green light but secretly sends another assassin along, just to be sure. It's been 2 weeks since Vash took off, and Meryl and Millie are chewing their nails with worry. Meryl even picks a fight in the bar to defend Vash's honor, but regrets it instantly. However, remembering the words of a wise old man, she recommits to her mission, to follow the humanoid typhoon to the ends of the earth. Meanwhile, Vash is in the dive bar when a dead body gets up, delivers a message from Legatol.
If you do not meet my request, this is a sample of what will happen. Don't!
The message is clear. Go to the city of Augusta. News that Vash is terrorizing Augusta spreads, and the insurance girls hear about it. When they get there, Vash really seems to have gone off the deep end. He's shooting everywhere, yelling his own name, and scaring the whole town away. The reason? He finds the bodies of the last guys he faced hanging on a wall. That's when Mine shows up for a fight, followed immediately by Raide the Blade, a samurai from the Gung Ho Guns. He challenges Vash to a Shiai, which is basically a fancy way of saying a fight to the death. His reason? His Bushido, the samurai code. The man just wants to feel the thrill of facing death. Mine is pissed about being ignored, but Raide finishes him off without a second thought, saying he had already lost to Vash's aim anyway. With Mine out of the way, the death match begins. Raide has a sword that's also a rifle, catching Vash by surprise. In the middle of the fight, Legatol invades Vash's mind and tells him to use that. At that moment, Vash's angel arm activates, and his arm begins to transform into a bizarre, gigantic weapon. Vash, panicking, screams at Raide to run. Desperate, he shoots his own arm to divert the energy, but the blast still wipes out the city and blows a massive hole in the fifth moon.
What the?
In the aftermath, Wolfwood finds Raide alive and asks about Vash. The samurai doesn't know, but proposes an alliance to kill the typhoon. Wolfwood, without hesitation, knocks Raide out cold right there. To cap it all off, Meryl and Millie receive orders from their agency to drop the case, leaving Meryl completely devastated. Now, a trip back in time to understand where Vash and his brother came from. We're aboard a ship from Project Seeds, humanity's last hope to find a new home, since Earth went bust. Here we meet Rem, a mother figure to the young Vash and Knives. She explains that people are in cryo sleep, waiting to start a new life. Life on the ship isn't all roses. A crew member named Steve, jealous of the boy's abilities, takes out his frustration by beating Vash. Knives, with his cold demeanor, just tells his brother to man up. A quick flashback shows that when they were first found, the crew wanted to eliminate them, but Rem wouldn't allow it. Time passes. Rem cuts Vash's hair in the style of an old friend, but Knives decides to cut his own, saying they need to be different. You can already see the guy has some twisted ideas. Things start to go south for real when Steve harasses a colleague, Mary. Knives confronts him, and shortly after, Steve is accused of a serious crime and put into cryo sleep despite pleading his innocence. It turns out another crewmate, Rowan, confesses to Mary that he loves her and that he was the one who sabotaged Steve's pod to kill him. When she rejects him, he snaps and shoots her. Rowan then blames Knives for everything and points the gun at him, but Rem steps in front. While she tries to calm the man down, the ship's desperate captain ejects both Rowan and Mary's body into space. And here comes the plot twist. Knives approaches the shocked captain pretending to console him and bam, shoots him dead.
What I did was a horrible mistake.
You're just a human, like the rest of them. I know my choice is the right one.
He then hacks the system and reprograms all the ships in the fleet to crash into the new planet. Rem discovers the plan and, against Vash's will, puts him in an escape pod and stays behind. Knives reveals his evil plan to Vash. He orchestrated the whole situation and wanted humanity to turn to dust, but thanks to Rem's sacrifice, who managed to recalibrate the course, most of the ships are able to land safely. In a gripping flashback, we see Vash losing his left arm and destroying the city of July with the overwhelming power of his angel arm. Cut to the present, where he's living a quiet life under the name Eric's, being woken up by a young woman named Lena. Meanwhile, Wolfwood arrives in a small town overrun by bandits. Their leader, an imposter calling himself Vash the Stampede. Wolfwood enters a bar and comes face to face with Eric's and Lena. It turns out Lena had a run-in with the bandit leader, who now demands she turn herself over. To avoid more trouble, Eric's tries to negotiate. The deal is humiliating. The bandits will leave if he strips down and acts like a dog in front of everyone, and he does it. Even so, after they leave, intimidated by Wolfwood's death glare, one of the henchmen shoots Eric's in the back. At the hospital, Wolfwood has no patience for drama and wakes Vash up with a punch to the face, calling him by his real name. Vash confesses he just wanted to live in peace, but Wolfwood gives him a reality check. He hands over Vash's gun, repaired for free by a guy who was a fan of the humanoid typhoon. Vash's peace is shattered for good when Wolfwood shares the latest news. An entire city called Carcasses has vanished, and the only clue is the name Knives written in massive letters. Vash is furious, realizing his brother will never leave him alone. As if that weren't enough, Lena's grandmother shows up saying the bandits have kidnapped her. This is the final push he needed. Vash takes his gun back and, together with Wolfwood, storms the bandits' base and rescues the girl.
Showtime!
Back at her house, Vash sits down for Lena to cut his hair, bringing back his signature spiky hairstyle. The era of Eric's is over. Even with Lena and her grandmother begging him to stay, his mind is made up. He says a silent goodbye, thanking them for everything, and leaves with Wolfwood, ready to finally face his past and his brother. Vash and Wolfwood are stranded in the middle of nowhere until an old guy offers them a ride. The moment they climb into the truck bed, the two start fighting like cats and dogs. The driver yells at them to quiet down, but it only lasts a second. The peace is broken when the man asks where the boys are headed, and they start arguing again about their destination. Meanwhile, the dynamic duo Meryl and Millie find out Vash is heading to New Oregon and catch a ride on a sand steamer, basically a desert-faring ship, to get there too. Once in New Oregon, Wolfwood takes Vash out to eat and uses the opportunity to explain the town's drama. Two families are locked in a bitter feud, which escalated after a little girl was murdered over it. In the middle of this sad story, Vash, who's nobody's fool, gives Wolfwood the slip, leaving a cat in his place to cover the bill. Genius. Vash goes to visit an old friend, Max, to learn more about a typhoon named Jacqueline. At the same time, Meryl and Millie are taken hostage on the sand steamer, but the bandits had no idea who they were messing with. The two not only handle the thugs, but also find out about the typhoon themselves. Suddenly, the sand steamer crashes right into the building where Vash is, and the bandits take over. It turns out the bandits are actually the other family from the feud, seeking revenge against the man who killed the girl. Vash goes into pacifist mode and takes everyone down without killing a soul, but the girl's father wants to take justice into his own hands. Vash tries to stop him, becoming a human punching bag to break the cycle of hatred. In the end, the father can't go through with it. Meryl and Millie arrive, and Vash, his job done, vanishes from the city. To close things out, we see Leonov in the desert, having a chat with Legatel. Ominous. The so-called typhoon, Jacqueline, arrives in New Oregon in full force, and Meryl and Millie panic when they can't find Vash anywhere. After a quick flashback of Vash and Knives as children, we return to the present. Vash, following some dubious advice, jumps off a cliff to catch a ride on an elevator leading to a Project Seed ship floating in the sky, and much to his delight, Wolfwood tags along as a stowaway. From below, Leonov and his bird-like puppets observe everything and report back to a very pleased Legatel. On the ship, they meet the doctor and a young man named Brad. Jessica soon appears and gives Vash an intimate hug, leaving Brad looking like he just bit into a lemon. Wolfwood is left to babysit the jealous pair, and Brad warns him to keep his mouth shut and not spread the smell of gunpowder around. Things take a dark turn when Leonov infiltrates the ship with his puppets. Vash and the doctor discuss knives, and the conversation irritates Brad so much that he storms out of the room. The doctor then spills the beans. Brad is jealous because Jessica prefers Vash. To brighten his day, the doctor gives our hero a brand new prosthetic arm. Meanwhile, Wolfwood, just looking for a quiet place to think, finds a room full of dead bodies. And guess who gets the blame? Vash goes looking for Jessica and finds her gift with the word kill written in blood on it, a very bad sign. Back in the middle of the conflict, Brad points a gun at Wolfwood, but our cross-wielding gunslinger knows one of Leonoff's puppets is the real culprit. After destroying a few of them, Leonoff reveals he has kidnapped Jessica. In a desperate act, Brad puts the gun to Wolfwood's head to try and save her, but Vash swoops in to set things right. With the duo reunited, Leonoff drops the bomb. He has sent 3 demons to crash the party on the ship. Legatul is seen conferring with Knives about the suffering Vash is about to endure. Meanwhile, on the ship, 2 brutes named Gray and Hoppard are wreaking havoc. Vash and Wolfwood split up to handle the mess. Vash tests out his new prosthetic arm, which is conveniently also a gun, and clears a room full of Leonoff's puppets with a little help from Brad. The villain's plan is to destroy the ship's plants, which are like its heart. If they go down, the ship becomes scrap metal and falls. To reach the second plant, located 6 floors below, Vash has the brilliant idea of shooting through the floor to create a shortcut. Desperate, but effective. Down below, he finds the bodies of old friends and comes face to face with Hoppard. Meanwhile, Wolfwood uses his wits and throws acid on Gray, melting the creature's metal skin. After that, a single rocket is all it takes to blow its upper half to Kingdom Come. Vash, on the other hand, faces Hoppard, who boasts about his invincible shield. But Vash, the master of improvisation, uses Leonoff's wires to create a trap and neutralize the guy. The problem is, Hoppard is like a cockroach. Even without a head, its legs keep moving to destroy the plant. To make matters worse, Hoppard throws himself at it in a kamikaze attack. The ship begins to fall. On the ground, the survivors blame Vash. Brad defends him, and suddenly Jessica appears. But Wolfwood arrives with the real Jessica, revealing the other one was a puppet. The imposter tries to kill Vash, but Brad throws himself in front of the attack, dying a hero. From above, Wolfwood finally gets his revenge, firing a rocket at Leonoff. Meryl and Millie arrive just in time to witness Brad's final moments with Vash. After the disaster on the siege ship, Vash realizes the showdown with Knives is inevitable and hits the road with Wolfwood, Meryl, and Millie. Their destination is Kibos, a city built in the ruins of another ship, but the guards have a strict no tourists policy. The group ends up following a child to a strange orphanage carved into a rock and filled with children. Apparently, all the adults in the area have simply vanished. The next morning, chaos erupts. Following a nighttime visit from the gung-ho guns, a mob from Kibos shows up, blaming Vash's group for a guard's death and for opening the gates. In the midst of the confusion, things get even crazier. Giant sandworms, straight out of Dune, invade and start destroying everything. Vash and Wolfwood, no fools, figure out that the worms are being controlled. Vash discovers the one responsible is Bet, one of the boys from the orphanage. He destroys the control device, and the kid confesses he is Zazie the Beast, one of the gun-ho guns. With a gun in his hand, he threatens everyone, but Wolfwood doesn't hesitate and shoots, killing the boy. Everyone is in shock. But Wolfwood lays down the hard truth, saying it was necessary for their survival. It's a brutal decision that leaves a heavy atmosphere hanging in the air. In a flashback to Wolfwood's past, it's revealed that he was trained by Chapel the Evergreen, one of the gung-ho guns. Back in the present, Wolfwood is approached by his former master Evergreen and is recruited back into the gang. Meanwhile, Kane the Longshot, a sniper, prepares an ambush for the town. The tension between Vash and Wolfwood is palpable. They pass each other, but don't exchange a single word. That night, Millie goes to Wolfwood's room. They talk about him killing Zazie and what he thinks of Vash. The conversation deepens, and Millie ends up spending the night with him. A moment of calm before the storm. The next day, Wolfwood provokes Vash into a fight, but he refuses. That's when Kane makes his move, firing at them both. They split up. Vash goes after the sniper, and Wolfwood faces Evergreen. Vash destroys Kane's weapon, and Kane chooses to commit suicide rather than be captured. Wolfwood, meanwhile, falls into a trap set by Evergreen, but manages to escape and turn the tables. However, when he has the chance to finish off his former master, he hesitates. This act of mercy costs him dearly. Evergreen shoots him in the back. Mortally wounded, Wolfwood has one last conversation with Vash, enters a church to confess his sins, and dies.
I did not want to die this way!
The loss is devastating for everyone, especially Millie. Evergreen confronts Legatol because he had to kill his own student, Wolfwood. The argument doesn't last long, as Knives appears and seemingly erases Evergreen from existence, leaving Mid-Valley, another gung-ho gun, completely horrified by the sight. Meanwhile, Vash is trying to move on. He buys a bag of donuts, but the pain of Wolfwood's loss is so great he can barely eat and drops them all, breaking down completely. He left Meryl and Millie behind to protect them from Knives, but the two decide to follow him anyway, because their friendship now outweighs their job. Suddenly, some children approach Vash and mention Wolfwood. Before he can process it, the children and the entire town's population collapse, unconscious. Legatol emerges from the shadows, taunting Vash and revealing he has the left arm Vash lost in July. The villain sets a meeting at the top of a hill, and as soon as he vanishes, everyone wakes up. To make matters worse, Mid-Valley appears, reveals Vash's identity to the whole town, and everyone flees in terror. Mid-Valley attacks Vash with his saxophone, while Legatol manipulates civilians to use as human shields. In the end, Vash destroys the instrument, and Mid-Valley kills himself.
Oh, no!
Vash finally finds Legatol and shoots him, but the villain uses one last trick. He takes Meryl and Millie hostage, forcing Vash to break his one golden rule. Cornered and with no other choice, Vash shoots to kill. As if nothing had happened, we cut to Vash waking up from a dream about Rem. He's completely disoriented, with no idea where he is. When he's hit by flashbacks of Wolfwood's death and the moment he killed Legatol, he spirals into a deep existential crisis, blaming himself for breaking his golden rule of never taking a life. Just then, Meryl enters the room. The atmosphere becomes incredibly awkward as they both try to process what happened with Legatol, but the tension is palpable. Meryl can't handle the pressure, makes a flimsy excuse, and runs out. Outside, she hears Vash completely break down, screaming and crying in agony for having become a murderer. It's a heartbreaking scene. Meryl decides to take a walk through the village to clear her head and finds Millie, who is doing manual labor as a way of thanking the villagers for their hospitality. They chat for a bit, but soon spot Vash on top of a mountain, still in a deep funk. They climb up and find him in a deplorable state. He screams that he needs to talk to Rem, that he needs her to tell him killing Legatol was the only way. Physically and emotionally weakened, he collapses. The next day, the mood in the town has completely shifted. The villagers turn on Meryl and Millie, calling Vash a monster. A man whose son was killed because of Vash shows up, ties the gunslinger to a rope, and drags him with a car. Then, he begins to beat him mercilessly. As the man is about to deliver the final shot, Meryl throws herself in front of Vash and gives a powerful speech, saying that no one has the right to take another person's life. The man is stunned and, in the end, backs down. This brutal beating ends up serving as a form of shock therapy. Vash finally understands that if someone truly repents, they can be forgiven and start over.
No one ever has the right to take the life of another. And everyone deserves a future.
With this newfound clarity, he feels ready for the final confrontation with his brother, Knives, and takes Wolfwood's giant cross with him on his journey. Vash walks alone through the scorching desert, carrying Wolfwood's giant cross on his back. His mission? To face his brother Knives in the final showdown that will decide everything. The scene cuts to a flashback from 130 years ago. Vash and Knives, still children, are at the crash site of the Project Siege ships. Vash accuses his brother of causing the disaster and killing Rem. Knives, with a sinister smile, not only admits it, but confesses he loved doing it.
You killed Rem! The crew! You killed them all!
Yeah, spectacular, huh?
It's clear he's been a psychopath since childhood. In another flashback, Knives explains his twisted philosophy. To him, humans are parasites that suck the life out of plants, and killing them is like sacrificing the spider to save the butterfly. Vash is so disgusted, he nearly smashes his brother's head with a rock, but the memory of Rem stops him. Years later, now as adults, the conflict between them finally erupts. Knives wants to use his angel arm power to destroy a city, but Vash stops him. In the struggle, Vash shoots his brother brother in the leg, takes his gun, and flees. This all leads to the infamous July incident, where Knives causes mass destruction. After that, Knives orders Legato and the gung-ho guns to make Vash's life a living hell. Back in the present, the final battle begins. It's an epic fight. Knives gains the upper hand and fires his angel arm, devastating the landscape. But to his surprise, Vash counters with his own angel arm, canceling out the attack. The power exchange leaves Vash completely drained. Knives takes advantage, shoots him, and grabs both guns for the finishing blow. Suddenly, Wolfwood's voice echoes, telling Vash to use the cross. Vash finds the Punisher, which was buried nearby, and fires, making Knives drop his weapon. Vash reclaims it and lands a shot in his brother's heart. Knives still manages to get off a grazing shot, but Vash reloads and incapacitates him for good. Instead of killing him, Vash lifts him up, saying he's going to live. He throws away his red coat and his gun, carries Knives on his shoulders, and heads back to the city, where Meryl and Millie welcome him. The war is over, and Vash is ready to live by his own rules.
Ma'am, I will continue to believe in you. But from now on, I'll look to my own words for guidance.